Hello, welcome again to Jackrabbit Journal. Tom Nieman along with Hank McCall, and another season of South Dakota State University football getting set to kick off with the Jacks at Kansas on Saturday in a winnable game for the Jackrabbits coming up this weekend.
On paper, it certainly does look winnable.
All right, just your initial gut feeling going into this season for the Jackrabbits.
Well, my initial feeling, I've got a good feeling in my gut. This is a program that is coming off of some serious success over the last few years. Yeah. Of course, there are holes to fill, as there are in every program at this point in the season. But this year, right now, there are some holes in some areas that folks who've been following this team haven't necessarily been used to discussing over the past few years.
Quarterback, running back, wide receiver. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll run through the probable starting offense and defense for the Jacks coming up in the Kansas game. But let's take a quick peek back to last season. The Jacks won 9 games for the third season in a row, made the FCS playoffs for the third straight season. There's 123 FCS football teams. South Dakota State is one of only 6 that has made the playoffs in the last 3 years. So they got it rolling in the right direction. But the goal now is to get past that second round in the playoffs. Hopefully this year at some point in the future, right?
Absolutely. The bar's set, right, guys? We know that we can get into the playoffs and maybe win a game, but how? What is it going to take for us to take that next step? And that's where their eyes are set. The eye is on the prize. It certainly should be.
All right, here's the short, sweet recap of last season. The Jacks opened at Missouri. Zach Zenner takes a bobbled snap on SDSU's first play of the game, goes 75 yards for a touchdown. That was the good news. Zenner had 103 yards on 17 carries. And then the disaster. Austin Sumner goes down with a foot injury in the first quarter, so he is out for almost 2 months. And we get introduced to Zach Lujan. He comes in, goes 21 of 28, 239 yards in his Jackrabbit debut. Pretty good for a guy that nobody knew anything about at the time. So Lujan starts the next 7 games, and the Jacks win 5 of them. They beat Cal Poly 44-18. They win at Southern Utah. They get a win at home against Wisconsin Oshkosh behind 209 yards and 3 touchdowns from Zach Zenner. First Missouri Valley game, though, was an ugly loss at Illinois State. The Jacks turned it over 3 times in the first quarter and got beat 45-10. Illinois State goes on and plays in the national championship game. Jacks, though, come back with a home win against Missouri State. 3 touchdown catches for Jake Winnecke. Jacks then get a huge win at Northern Iowa. Dallas Brown with an interception return for a touchdown in the third quarter. Jacks had a 28-14 lead in the fourth quarter, but the Panthers get a pick 6 late in the ballgame to tie it at 28 before Justin Siravatka nails a 44-yard field goal with under 2 minutes left to pull out a win there. Jacks follow that up, though, with a loss at home to Youngstown State. Jacks lead in almost every stat category. Don't turn the ball over, but they lose it 30-27. And then, after missing 7 games with that foot injury, Sumner makes a somewhat surprising start in the next game at North Dakota State. His return, though, not enough against the mighty Bison. Sumner goes 14 of 28, 189 yards in his return, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but the Bison hold Zenner under 100 yards, and North Dakota State wins 37-17. So the Jacks are 5-4 at this point, have to win out to have a shot at the playoffs, which they do. Win at Indiana State. Zenner with 193 yards and 2 scores. Jacks win 32-17. That's followed by the demolition of Western Illinois. Sumner throws for a career-high 6 touchdowns, 3 of them to Jake Winnecke, 2 to Schneider, 1 to Zenner. And Sumner sets a school record for career touchdown passes in this game as well. Jacks win 59-24. And the regular season finale against South Dakota. Jacks score in their first 5 possessions. 3 more touchdown passes for Zenner. Jacks beat the Yotes 37-14. Finish the regular season 8-4. Second straight year they've had to win the last 3 games of the season to get in, and they do it. And again, that speaks to where this program is at right now.
Certainly have come a long way. We've talked about it on this program at length over the past few years, but the past is the past, and now here we are. 2015 is the new year, the new season for this program. And so, like I said earlier, what's it going to take for this group to get to the next level? Of course, the coach has talked about the goal being one of the top 8 teams to get into the playoffs and receive that bye. But what's it going to take to become a national champion is the real question that all these guys need to be asking themselves.
That's where they have to get to now. That's the next step.
Certainly. That's the ultimate goal.
All right. The Jacks have shown they can win playoff games. They won at Montana State last year in the snow. Zach Zenner won one of his best games ever, 252 yards on the ground, 4 touchdown runs. He also catches a pass from Sumner, takes that 69 yards for a touchdown, and the Jacks win 47-40 at Montana State. But then the heartbreaker in Fargo, Jackson, the Bison, and the Jacks had him. Zenner breaks through with 133 yards on 32 carries. Sumner hits Winnecke for a touchdown to give the Jacks a lead with just over 3 minutes to play. But the Bison march the field and score with 54 seconds left. And North Dakota State wins it 27-24, season over for South Dakota State. And we'll see if they can get past that second round this year. We will run through this year's schedule a little bit later. The home schedule is going to be outstanding this year. And when we come back, Sumner, Zenner, Schneider, all gone. So who's going to put it in the end zone for the Jackrabbits this year? We'll run down the Rabbit offense after this.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back. The SDSU football team starts this season this Saturday at Kansas. And let's take a look at the Jackrabbit offense. And the number one question for you going into this season on the offense?
Absolutely. Comes down to the quarterback position, Tom. Number one, who's going to be the starter? I think we all know that Zach Lujan is going to be the guy. Came in last year, performed admirably, helping out when Austin Sumner went down. Actually did a tremendous job. And I think he earned the right to be considered the number one coming into fall camp. And from what it appears, hasn't done anything to lose that. And until then, you roll it out there with him, see how things go, and go from there.
Lujan started 7 games last year. He won 5 of those, and he says it was really hard, a blow to his ego, to go back to the bench when Austin Sumner did come back from injury.
The toughest thing in football was that I've ever experienced was to give up the starting position once I had it. But I find peace in the fact that I would have made the same decision. He was a 3-year starter, or 4-year starter, 3-year team captain. It was his team at that point. So now it's just, I want to make it my team.
I think he knows that guys got to want to play for you, and if you approach it that way, then they are going to want to rally and play behind you. And he's not afraid to get on a guy, but he is a very positive person.
And that is one thing you notice right away about Zach Lujan. He's just so upbeat, and he wants everybody else around him to be upbeat and get things done. Through fall camp, there have been several factors in Lujan's favor as well. He put on 15 pounds of muscle over the summer. He knows the system, and that should be enough, as you said, Hank, to get him the starting nod. They had Taryn Christian, a freshman, in camp. Dalton Douglas, a kid that was a redshirt last year, but Lujan did enough.
Yes, he did. There's some talented guys that he's competing against day in and day out in fall camp. And I think you mentioned it, his leadership capabilities that have come out with him vocally in camp, coupled with what he was able to do last year and the work that he's put in the offseason. He's the guy week 1.
All right. And Jake Winnecke is back after an unbelievable season last year. It seems like Lujan and Winnecke have a very good connection. Winnecke set a school record for touchdown catches last year. He was a second-team All-American. He was named the Missouri Valley Conference Freshman of the Year. And you see players bow down to him in practice and give him a lot of grief about that. But he says all that adoration is very good motivation for him.
It definitely drives me because I feel like I haven't done as much as I can do and will do. So hopefully I can build off of that and use it as motivation to have a great year this year.
All right, we think Winnecke is going to be great again this year. We will see. But can they find other guys to get the ball to keep the pressure off of Jake Winnecke?
Well, they're going to have to, right? Just like you said, to keep the pressure off of Winnecke, sure, but also to make plays themselves and help this team win football games. Trevor Wesley, senior, coming back. He's the leader of this group. I certainly expect a big year from him. Connor Landberg, he's somebody who did come on later on in the season last year in more of a supportive role. I'd expect him to see a number of looks as well. The bottom line is we know Winnecke's a playmaker, but who else out of that group is ready to become one themselves?
Alex Wilde, true freshman from Sioux Falls, is right behind Winnecke on the depth chart that just came out this week. So that's at wide receiver. At running back, sophomore Brady Mangarelli is the number one guy. Probably won't get 25 carries a game like Zenner did last year, but will share the totes with redshirt freshman Isaac Wallace. Reggie Gandy might get some carries. You okay with the old running back by committee?
Absolutely. It's a talented bunch back there, led by Mangarelli. We know that Isaac Wallace is certainly a talented individual, so I'm looking forward to seeing all those guys get some carries.
All right, offensive line has 3 starters back from last year. Left tackle Bryce Seiberling, left guard Dylan Sider, and center Jacob Onosorgi. But Seiberling has moved over to right tackle now. Taylor Bloom is number 1 on the chart at right guard, and a sophomore Charlie Harmon, who has never played for the Jacks before, will get the start at left guard. Does this make you nervous at all?
No, not nervous. And I think what we've seen with this unit over the past years is a whole lot of versatility. Yeah. These guys have, for whatever reason, I think it has a lot to do with the coaching that they receive week in and week out. They're always ready to go. It'll take some time to develop some continuity for sure, but there's a talented bunch up there. They'll be able to do it.
All right, going to be fun to see this Saturday. What about the Jackrabbit defense? 9 starters back. They should be salty, and we'll talk about them next.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back. Getting ready for the Jackrabbit football opener at Kansas on Saturday. And let's get into the SDSU defense. I think this unit is going to be really, really good this year. What about you?
I have high expectations for them as well. The majority of the core leaders of this group are coming back. We're going to see it at every position as we kind of break that down over the next couple of minutes here. But absolutely, they've got their work cut out for them in the Missouri Valley with some of the offenses they're going to see week in and week out. But they have the makings of what could be certainly a top 3 unit within the conference.
Coach John Stegelmeyer is old school. He does not want to see any high-scoring games. Here's what he had to say about his defense this year.
The defense has to be special. I mean, not only because we lost a bunch of guys on offense, but because if you want to get to where we want to be, you got to play great defense. You know, I'm not long for this world if the games are 48-46. You know, that's not meant to happen in football.
Well, first off, that's pretty funny, but should Stig get his wish? Are we in a world of games in the 30s and 40s and 50s every week, or should Stig get his wish and give up 15 points a game and be very happy?
I'd love to see Stig get his wish and you don't only give up 15 points a game. That'd be great. But the reality has it, this is high-powered, high-flying offenses is what we see in college football these days. And when there is a defensive unit that can hold teams to under 20, let alone 15 points a game, they're an elite crew, no doubt about that. So if that's the goal, more power to them. Love having lofty goals. Go get it, guys.
All right, the defense is definitely experienced at most spots. Linebacker for sure. TJ Lally is back for his senior season. He has started every game in the last 3 years, and he will make it 42 starts in a row at Kansas on Saturday. And he knows that this year's defense has a chance to be very, very good.
That's kind of what we've been talking about a lot, is that if we're not one of the best defenses in the country, we feel like we will have failed the potential that we have, and so we're not there yet right now, but we're close, and I'm really excited to go to battle with these guys. There's so many guys that are some of the young guys are doing things that we've never really seen some people do on this team before.
And you hear TJ talk about some of those young guys. Some of them are going to be redshirt freshmen in the defensive backfield. They've got Jordan Brown at cornerback and Micaiah Slade at safety. Those guys are both number 2 on the depth chart right now. There are 6 true freshmen on the chart, including Brady Hale, the kid from Yankton, who's going to be the punter this year. But we have seen on this team in the last 3 or 4 years some freshmen that have been very good on the defense, haven't we?
Oh, certainly. And I think it speaks to the type of talent that this program is able to bring in now because of the recent success that they've had and getting to the playoffs the last 3 seasons. But what it takes, in order for those young guys to be successful, it takes quality veteran leadership at key positions in the unit. In order to teach those guys, hey, this is what it takes in order for us to be successful. It takes you doing your job on every single play, and when your number's called, making a play yourself.
And in the defensive backfield, the Jacks will have Jimmy Forsythe and Jerian Butler, 2 seniors at the corners. Nick Mears, a junior, at one of the safeties, so they'll have some leadership there for those young guys. On the whole, defensive coordinator Clint Brown is cautiously optimistic. He just wants to be too deep and trustworthy at every defensive position.
It should be, but it's the guys that maybe don't have as much experience that need to understand the concept that maybe they're not going to make the starting unit, but they got to fight like crazy to take reps away from the starting unit guys. Like we talked about, we want to have 22 guys that we can count on and trust. There's a difference than just being 22 guys. If you're the guy that's number 2 and we can't trust you, you're not going to play. So that's really what we're pushing for right now.
And for Coach Brown, one of his biggest emphases, one of his biggest concerns, of course, was all through camp has been depth, especially on the defensive line.
Absolutely. It's an area of focus for this program right now. It's a group that certainly wasn't lacking in effort last year. These guys are going hard every single play, but where they lacked was in playmaking ability and specifically in that sack column. Everybody knows that they struggled to get to the quarterback last year. So which of these young guys are going to step up and find a way to get a little more production out of this unit? Of course, Langer's back and Gottlob and Plote. We know those names. Those guys are going to be solid. But which of these young guys is ready to get after this year?
There are two really young guys. One's a redshirt freshman, Christian Benaziak. Number 69 is going to be a guy to watch this Saturday against Kansas. Looks like an animal at one of the defensive end spots. That's what the Jacks really need. And then Blake Witzel is a true freshman out of Colorado who's going to back up one of the defensive tackle spots. So there's going to be a couple of new names that hopefully, as you said, are going to get to the quarterback. Coach Brown told us he has set a goal for just that defensive front four, 2.5 sacks a game, which is pretty lofty, but you might as well go for it, right?
Absolutely go for it. And I should say, it's not just about sacks either. Sure, they got to get to the quarterback to help take some pressure off of the secondary, who does have some young players that will have to be on the field throughout the season. But they've also just got, these young guys have to just do their jobs every single play. There's more to being a defensive end than just going and getting the quarterback. And we'll see if they can step up to that challenge.
All right, up next, we will go through the schedule. We'll play the win or lose game and see if you and Hank agree on what's going to happen this year for the Jacks. We'll do that when we come back.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back. South Dakota State is picked to finish 5th in the Missouri Valley Football Conference this year out of the 10 teams. The Jacks are rated number 15 in the country in the preseason FCS coaches poll. Does it mean anything? Probably not. Number 1 team in the country has already been knocked off this year, but we will see 11 games on the schedule this year for the Jacks. Here are the first 3, Hank, and just some thoughts on, again, the game at Kansas this Saturday. Winnable game for South Dakota State. I truly believe that.
Definitely. Great opportunity for SDSU to get their first FBS win, a win against an FBS school. Kansas, obviously, they're not looking to have what they would define as a letdown against an FCS school, but I do expect Jacks to go down there and win that game.
All right, first home game is Southern Utah. Jacks beat Southern Utah 26-6 last year, September 19th is an off day for the Jacks, and then Robert Morris comes to town on September 26th. This is an FCS school in Pennsylvania. They were 1-10 last year, and we'll have that game on Midco Sports Network. And then the Missouri Valley Conference schedule starts on October 3rd with the Bison coming to Brookings.
Absolutely. What should be a great matchup between two good teams within this conference relatively early on in the season to really get things going to kick off October, the meat of the season, at Coughlin Alumni Stadium, which will be jam-packed. Certainly a little bit larger crowd than what we've been used to in the past with the recent renovations of the stadium. Cannot wait for that ball game October 3rd.
Yeah, Coughlin is going to hold about 17,000 fans this year. We'll see if we can fill it up for that game. And then the schedule continues with Indiana State in Brookings. Jacks go to Youngstown State and then home against Northern Iowa on Hobo Day.
Huge game against UNI. Hobo Day, of course, Coughlin will be packed again. Anxious to see just how UNI has retooled after losing a couple of skill guys, quarterbacks back, I believe. They'll be raring to go. They're ranked up there as well preseason.
Lost a lot on defense. We'll see Northern Iowa. And then on Halloween at Missouri State. And then November starts with Illinois State, the runners-up last year to North Dakota State, the last regular season home game at Coughlin Alumni Stadium.
And that'll be a big one. When you look at the schedule, too, you look at the teams that are actually coming to Brookings, North Dakota State, Northern Iowa, and Illinois State. Massive games within the conference between the top, what are some of the top 5 teams in the conference.
All right, at South Dakota in the rivalry game on November 14th. We'll have that here on Midco Sports Network and wrap it up on the 21st at Western Illinois. And again, the goal is to be one of the top 8 seeds in the 2014 playoff field. That gets you a first-round bye, and that maybe gets you past the second round, but that's a long ways off. So at Kansas on Saturday in the season opener. We'll talk more about the matchup against the Jayhawks when we come back.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
All right, the Jackrabbits open the season at Kansas on Saturday. It's an 11 morning kickoff, 11 a.m. Kickoff for this game. One thing you were looking forward to, Hank, to find out about the Jackrabbits in this game against Kansas.
Well, personally, I really want to find out how this offense is going to respond to what is essentially an entirely new group. I'm sure you've got some guys on the offensive line who have been around and have played in some big games, just as the new quarterback has, just as your All-American wide receiver has. But really, this is a new group with regard to leadership, and they've done what appears to be a good job of piecing it together in the offseason. But how are you going to respond now that you know that you're the guy? This is your opportunity to make an impact and to make a statement on an FBS stage. And so who's going to step up and who's going to make some plays, because that's what it's going to take in order to beat a team like Kansas.
The Jayhawks are rebuilding, to say the least. They're not a good team that is rebuilding, trying to rebuild. They're a bad team that is really trying to get something going. They've been awful in the last couple of years. They do have a quarterback back from last year, but he only threw for 5 touchdowns in the games that he did play last year. Their leading rusher didn't score last year. Their leading receiver had 0 touchdowns. They just don't have a whole lot coming back. So we will see what the Jags can do. Kansas gave up more than 450 yards a game. And granted, that was in the Big 12 last year, but still, that's a lot to give up. Stig, though, says there is one big overriding goal that he wants his team to reach before this game on Saturday.
I would say our ability to master our trade. When I watch a cover 3 corner, I should see the same thing all the time. When I watch a tight end release on a certain pass route, I should see the same thing every time. And when you do that, then you can see the other things because you have it mastered. It's like a flashcard. We're a ways away yet.
All right, so how masterful should we expect the Jackrabbits to be on Saturday?
Masterful enough to win this game, with the understanding that this is a young group on both sides of the ball, for the most part, who we need to see get better week in and week out throughout the season if they want to be conference champions.
All right, we will see you at the game. We'll see you next week on Jack Journal.